those comments, that's a tough one to follow. I would have to agree with those. And along the same lines, I would suggest a very, very transparent budget. One in which we're all going to talk about scrutinizing the budget. I think we need to look at a budget that do we really need that portion of the budget? Do we need that item? Do we need whatever that might be on the budget? And when we go forward and look at how we're going to spend that money, and we say, well, we're not going to spend it out of it's not going to cost the taxpayers, it's out of the savings. I would want to make sure that if it is out of the savings, why have we been spending it to date? So that's why it's called transparency. Thank you.
Mr. Babcock, what's the most important task or vital role that you will play as mayor for the next 4 years?
Before I start, I want to apologize if I'm getting text messages from my daughter. Looking down at this, no disrespect to the candidates and to the audience. So, one of the most important things I'm going to do is provide leadership. I'm going to provide leadership and stop the spending. We've been spending like crazy. And one of the things we've seen that's happen all across the country, we've been spending. I've been a constant voice, constantly saying stop the spending. Granted, we've got $12 million in the bank, or 11 and a half. That's great. We've just spent all this money on the City Hall project. I was the lone person who said, no, it's not time to spend the people's money. So I'm going to go ahead and provide leadership, economic development. I've been working on some programs. We'll get more on that later tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Oswald. Yeah. What's the most important task or vital role you will play?
Well, you know, a lot of people talk about saving money, and that's an easy thing to say, isn't it? But I intend to get involved in every single department, probably starting with the police department, because I think that's an extremely special department that everybody relies on for safety. But I want to go through every department and talk to every employee of the city of Warsaw and find out exactly how we do, what we do, why we do it, and why we spend the money that we spend. And then I can make an evaluation and determine where we can actually save money. But it's easy to say we're going to save money, but you really have to take a real hard look at exactly what you're doing before you can find the facts. And that would be the first thing that I would want to do in the first year.
Thank you. Question number 2, we'll start with Mr. Miller, and then Mr. Babcock, and back around, and Dr. Dolan. And just received a question from the audience talking about the difference between a republic and a democracy. And we actually live in a republic that says we elect you and then you make decisions. If we don't like your decisions, we elect someone else 4 years later. However, for the 4 years, you make decisions that are right in your own eyes. So, from where do you draw your moral compass to make decisions? Where do you draw your moral compass to make decisions? Begin with you, Mr. Miller.
That's probably a tricky question that I don't think I could answer the same for every scenario. From a financial side of it, morally I would watch your money as I would watch my own. From a growth side of it, I feel this community needs every option it has and it can get to bring new opportunities to the town, not just in jobs and recreation, in churches, in restaurants, and whatever it can happen. Thank you.
Mr. Babcock, we elect you and then you make decisions for 4 years that are right in your own eyes. Where do you draw your moral compass to make decisions?
Good question. We've got to look all different ways. I mean, you look back when President Bush became president, he reached out to the churches, the faith-based groups like that. That's real important because we've seen so many things that can basically go through faith-based organizations. The question on elected for 4 years, you're working with the city councils with 7 members. I'll go back to the point of leadership. I think getting all those people together, talking about things, and as we move forward, getting everybody on the same team. We don't want to just include people from Warsaw. I think we have an obligation line is, let's reach out to everybody and let's listen, because I believe everybody should have a chance to listen. Thank you.
Mr. Oswald, where do you draw your moral compass?
Morals come from God. I take my morals from God. I listen to my heart. I know the difference between right and wrong. I make decisions based on what's right for the people that are paying the bill, not for myself or my friends, just based on what's best for the people that we're serving. That's where I draw my compass. Dr. Paul? Well, I would draw my moral compass from my parents who are sitting out here tonight, from my wife who's sitting out here.
The moral compass is faith-inspired. I've got a family I've raised. I've been working 30 years in this community in a successful business. I deal with people that are good people, that are God-fearing people, that work hard, that are friends to their neighbors, that are unselfish, hardworking folks. It's pretty easy to point north when you live in a community like this, morally north, when you live in a community like this. I don't think that's a very difficult question to answer. I think it comes from your faith, your family, your friends, your neighbors, and everyone in this community that gives of themselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone like to, additional time? All right, we'll move on to the next question. Mr. Babcock, we'll start with you, and
Call it five.
I'll go ahead and call you Mr. Babcock. Like I said, You've earned the right. So, okay, here we go. Mr. Babcock, would you go to a ribbon cutting ceremony or a family center that promotes all levels of family planning, including abortion counseling, or a media outlet that promotes pornography? Why or why not to either or both?
Good question. I say no. I just filled out the Right to Life survey I got just recently, and there's a question very similar on that. I believe it's important for us to show leadership, of course, but here in the city, we look at things, we have to provide leadership, but these are some of the issues that we'll face, and we dealt with this issue. There was a video store that kind of snuck in, and we didn't really know what was going on there, so I think that's something that maybe we didn't know and we need to look at a little bit further, but to answer your question, no. Thank you.
Mr. Oswald.
Well, I agree. I do not believe in abortion, and I would not condone it in any way, shape, or form. And pornography, well, Jesus said, whatever's in your eye, it's better to poke your eye out than to look at pornography. So I believe that would be in your heart, and no, I would not want that in our city, ever. I would not go to a ribbon cutting.
Dr.
I certainly agree with Kyle and Michael, and I think this goes back to our moral compass. I feel like I would be a leader in trying to adhere to a moral compass set by the community standards, and those types of businesses, actually in 1999, the Plan Commission did restrict those types of businesses from the downtown area. So there are certain things that government can get involved to try and control that. Certainly not everything, and I think that would certainly be at my leisure to decide who I would want to go to a ribbon cutting for, and I certainly would not do that for the examples that you've given. Thank you.
Mr. Miller.
Mine's pretty easy to follow up. I don't disagree with any of them. It's not going to take me a minute to tell you why or why not. I definitely would not support any of those. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next question, and we'll start with you, Mr. Oswald. We're going to get into now some specific Warsaw issues that are pressing on the hearts and minds of some of our constituents. You're not at the state level, and so you cannot deal with making certain drugs prescription-oriented. So, what is your local solution to our current meth problem?
Education, education, education. I would personally go to the high school and speak with the children as often as I was asked and talk to them about life and believing in yourself and why you do not want to try drugs.
Once you're hooked, you're hooked. And the thing is, if you want to destroy your life, some of these drugs are the perfect way to do it. Also, rehabilitation as opposed to jail, incarceration. I would try to rehabilitate people that are on drugs because it's just not working. We're locking everybody up. We've got thousands of people in jail, and they get out and they go back to the drugs. So let's spend some more money on rehabilitation. Thank you.
Dr. Palmer.
Fortunately, I would disagree with you in your assertion as being local that we can't try and control the scheduling. On the contrary, at a city council meeting several months ago, we did support Rebecca Kabaki's efforts with a resolution that was pretty much passed by the majority. There was one abstention in that group. I think the methamphetamine surge is getting worse. Producing methamphetamine, coupled with its highly addictive nature, make it the perfect storm of drugs. We're spending a lot of money. Law enforcement and social workers are left to pick up the pieces. Also, the taxpayers are having to pay and pick up the tab. We need to attack this with all of our resources, and scheduling methamphetamine is probably the only way to cut it off and to choke it off. I don't know that I can do that myself, but I would use any influence I can on the state level to try and get that to pass, and that will come up again. Scheduling is not going to work, and it's just a waste of money.
Mr. Miller.
I don't know a lot about meth other than what I read the paper. Obviously, it's highly addictive, highly contagious. I would definitely support making it a subscription-based drug. Unfortunately, the people that use that, want that, need that, they're going to find it somewhere. And if we can get it done on a federal, on a national level, our neighboring states to do that, where we're all on the same page and make it more difficult, that would obviously be a positive. One thing I will be campaigning on that I think can possibly help this too, it's very related to it, is if we can camp out on our governor's doorstep, and one of my solutions would be to combine the county and the city law enforcement as one. And I think that would help in communication, help resolve that. Thank you.
Mr. Babcock.
One more time on the question, please.
Except for scheduling the prescriptions, which would be done ultimately at the state level, what local solutions are you prepared to tackle the meth problem?
Well, one of the first things I do is I talk to our drug task force. We do have actually a combined drug task force between the city and the county. Right now, we've got one officer in the city that's participating. We've got the county involved. I sit down, I go talk to Sheriff Gusher. I talk to Chief Whitaker for the Warsaw Police Department. I'd also talk to Matt Rapp from the drug task force, Mike Spiegel, and the whole crew. And what I do is figure out what they're thinking. I know there's been quite a bit of controversy in the last few months in regards to scheduling it, not scheduling it. I believe the bill that is down at the State House right now is Carlin Yoder from Elkhart has a bill talking about putting a directory or keeping track of people. It's going to come up again, but there again, provide leadership, talk to people, and just figure out what we can do. Thank you.
Didn't I start?
Anyone want to provide additional information? All right, we'll move on to the next one, and this is an economic diversity question. We know that we're the orthopedics capital of the world, and we love that. However, looking to create more economic diversity. So we'll start with you, Dr. Palmer. Other than tax abatements, TIF districts, other preparatory actions that the mayor and city council can do, what other role do you believe the mayor can play in creating more economic diversity for our community? I.e., what else do you think you could do to entice non-orthopedic companies to come to Warsaw?
Well, I don't think it's any secret that we don't have the shovel-ready ground that we need, the diversity of size of plots and the infrastructure to those plots. to attract any type of economic development. That is one goal of mine, is to continue to try and work for more shovel-ready ground. Annexation could be an issue, again, to maybe help create some of that ground. I was as far as to say that connections to our community are very important when it comes to trying to attract businesses. There's been talk of the airport expansion, which I'm sure will come up later, could facilitate that with potentially a direct route to Chicago. I know there's been a lot of talk about high-speed rail, and that's a whole different issue, but that is one issue that OrthoWorks has looked at, high-speed rail and the potential charter to try and improve connectivity of our community, which I think is critical.
Mr. Miller, other than the tax abatements and the traditional types of things, what other roles can you play to entice new companies to come to Warsaw?
I'm obviously in the orthopedic business myself. We predominantly manufacture orthopedic instruments and a lot of spinal implants. That's very important to me and to us. I think as a mayor, one of the most important things that the mayor can do is sales and marketing. We can't in Warsaw stick our heads in the mud and say that the medical device industry is going to be as robust as it is today, because it's not as robust as it was yesterday. It's a global world market. We have a lot of competitors. And with that, I think marketing our strengths, like one potential thing, we have so many good people here, so much talent. I think a strong aerospace company is a natural fit, and I will work hard to see that happen.
One of the things I do, again, is provide leadership. Something this summer that I did, jumped in the car, we had an opportunity. The Indiana Economic Development Corporation came to us with a program called Jumpstart. Nobody ever heard of this. It was at Cleveland, Ohio. I said, let's go over, I went with Mark Dobson from the chamber, let's check this thing out. We went over, sat down, talked to them. We raised $100,000 in our community in a couple weeks because we're saying, and we're seeing what's happening, that the orthopedic companies are changing. We're very fortunate that we're able to settle here. But we've got to look to the future, and we've got to have a plan. Jumpstart presents us with that. Also, provide leadership again. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce had a problem a few years ago when they had the health care bill. They called me. I put together and I brought together all the CEOs of all the businesses and other community leaders, brought them here and said, let's talk about this. We can't be Kokomo. We can't be Elkhart. We're Warsaw, and we need to make sure Warsaw is vibrant for the next 10, 15, 20, or 30 years. Thank you.
Mr. Oswald.
Well, we don't have a lot of land for expansion in Warsaw. However, Kosciuszko County, a lot of the Warsaw residents are going to work in Kosciuszko County, and they're going to come back and spend their money in our town, and they're going to pay their taxes. And I'm in the film industry, and I'm trained as an actor, and I'm trained as a producer and a director, and I want to work with the media department at the high school and make a DVD called Where's Warsaw, or Why Warsaw? Put it together starring our young people like, I'm Amy, I'm a senior at Warsaw High, and I'm here at Center Lake Pavilion. Then I want to get that, when it's refined, to the chambers and the business owners. A lot of people are tired of the big city, and they're thinking about relocating their companies. And Warsaw is a great place to raise your children. So if we show them what we have, and they realize where they can go, and this is a good place for them to come, I think that's going to bring in some industries into our county and our city.
Would anyone like to report on? All right, the next question will go to Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller, how many hours will you work each week as mayor? How will these hours influence or impact your current career?
Obviously, with never being a mayor before, I don't have a clue. When you hear our mayor now, he probably words it very correctly. He says it's a part-time job, but a full-time position. I would look at it much in the same way, but I think he is probably modest that I believe it's a full-time job and a full-time position. Over the last year, I've structured our business in where I'm stepping back more. I've personally hired a operations manager, and my son has taken over the shop floor, and pretty much all I do now is sales. So I've situated myself where I'd have plenty of time. Thank you.
Mr. Babcock, how many hours will you spend being mayor, and how will it affect your current career?
I'm all in. I grew up, my stepfather was Mike Hodges, so I know what the mayor's job is. Mike and my mom got married when I was 6 years old, so trust me, I know it's a 24/7 job. It's 4th of July when a limb comes down, you're taking out a chainsaw and you're cutting, doing this while some other people are workers are working or they're enjoying their time. It's 24/7. The bottom line is sure, I've got family commitments, but I believe it's a 60, 70-hour work week. I understand, I've lived it, and I understand how much time it's going to take, and it's a full-time job. Thank you.
Mr. Alston.
Well, according to the Chamber of Commerce, the average household income in Warsaw is about, their last report was $36,000. I did a little bit of creative math, and I said, okay, let's just say it's $40,000. The mayor of Warsaw makes $74,000 a year. His insurance is $21,000 a year. That's about $100,000 a year. I think a lot of people in this town would be very upset if they thought it was a part-time job. A man was making $100,000 a year for a part-time job. So my answer is, I haven't even become mayor yet, and I've already spent about 60 hours a week just discovering everything there is to discover about Warsaw and the city and the departments and what have you. So 60 hours a week.
Dr. Tallmer.
Certainly I agree with everyone. Being the mayor of Warsaw is a full-time job. I've spent the last 2.5 years bringing another associate into my practice. I now have 3 doctors in the practice. That's going to allow me to be a full-time mayor. I will spend a minimum of 40 hours, and as Kyle said, 24/7 as dictated and as necessary. So I will certainly be a full-time mayor.
All right, we'll move on to the next question. We'll start with Mr. Babcock. The current mayor and city council has purchased the old National City Bank building downtown using the counter-cyclical revenue and economic stabilization fund. IACOMA, a consulting firm that the city hired several years ago, said the city needed to stay downtown in order to keep the downtown district remaining viable. So, now that that decision's been made, what would be your next steps to promote the viability of a downtown revitalization? And would you use the rainy day funds again to be able to promote that revitalization?
You just knew you were going to start that with me, didn't you? Okay. I voted against the spending the money from the rainy day fund for City Hall. I didn't think now was the time. I personally didn't think we should be paying more for a building than what it's worth. The engineering report that I looked at on the city council night was $3.7 million. I know other people have said other things, but we paid a group $20,000 or $30,000 to do a study. So we spent $1.4 million to buy a building, so we're looking at $5 million. So I firmly believe we shouldn't use the rainy day account now. I think we should be spending our money on fixing the roads. Our roads are awful. One of the things that I believe in is fixing our roads. I don't think an old downtown building is economic development. To answer your question a little bit further, I'll do that another session. Thank you.
The downtown National City building has been purchased using the rainy day fund to keep the downtown viable. So what's the next step in keeping the downtown revitalization going? And would you continue to use rainy day funds to do that?
Well, I don't know if it's going to keep the downtown viable. I don't see how that's going to happen. I think it's actually going to create more of a parking problem for downtown businesses that sell food at noon, and there's not as many parking places because we have city employees. I believe we're in a pickle. I believe that that building is a white elephant. I do not think that you buy a building just because it's empty and to keep it occupied. If that's going to happen, we're going to have to buy every empty building in downtown Warsaw. I would rather have a restaurant and maybe nightclub upstairs than down in the First National Bank building. Maybe we should have reached out to some companies and asked them, given them some ideas about that. We have a great city hall right now, and it needs to be torn down and rebuilt, but would I use the rainy day? I would have to look into that. I would never answer a question without seeing all the facts. So no, I would not.
Dr. Toller, the current 50-year-old Market Street location is in disrepair, has no potential for growth, large amounts of non-functional workspace and inadequate meeting space. In fact, the city doesn't even own the parking lot and must lease those spaces. Again, as you mentioned from the formalized Hyatt Palma study, that's been a blueprint for downtown enhancement and revitalization that includes recommendation, as you mentioned, for a new city hall in a highly visible location. As a new building option was being explored in 2010, the First National Bank property came available in a very depressed real estate market. A feasibility study recommended the building and site as the most cost-effective option, confirmed the structural integrity of the building, and confirmed the space needs. With an assessed value of over $2.2 million, the city negotiated a purchase price of $1.3 million, which is about $42 a square foot. Preliminary estimates put the total renovated cost at about $136 a square foot, which is well below the $186 per square foot that the builder suggested for a new building. I think the city... Okay.
Mr. Miller.
I guess one of my first concerns is what the criteria is for a rainy day fund. Is it a building? Can it be anything? Personally, I'm opposed to the building, the spending of the money on it. I think it's not too late now to cut our losses. About 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I purchased the old Zimmer building in Center Lake, if you're not familiar with where we're located. We subleased part of that to Zimmer, and when they moved out, the city came and looked at the space. Zimmer wanted to buy it back. We didn't want to sell it at that point. They asked us, they looked at it, I believe, 2 or 3 times, and at that point, there was too much square footage. To me, it would have been a better choice than where they're at now, being adjacent to the park, to the water, and you have all the additional square footage. Now they're out of space. It's lack of planning. Thank you.
I see them all there. We'll just continue to go right again. Mr. Babcock, you'd like to add a few more thoughts about City Hall?
Not really a rebuttal. What I want to say was I want to answer your question a little bit more thoroughly on downtown. Cindy Dobbins is in the audience. She's director of our downtown development. We need to help downtown. Sure, it's great we've got Mayoral, we've got all these big box stores. But we've got to help downtown. Why can't we have public transportation drop people off downtown? We've got to work, fill those buildings. We need help. Cindy's a one-person organization. It's just her. We need to provide help. We've got other employees in the city that can help doing other things. Anytime when things are difficult, we bring them in, we ask for help, and I'm telling you, there's people in the city with other occupations that can help our downtown, and I'll provide the leadership to bring them in. Thank you.
It's funny that Tony brought up his space, because I thought when I drove by his building, I thought, you know, that would be perfect. It's got a huge parking lot. We should tear it down and build a state-of-the-art building right on the lake, right next to our park. And as people come into town, they would see our lovely city hall. We'd have a nice entrance. That's a perfect spot. That really is. And downtown Warsaw is very nice, but I think we could have done better. Okay, here's my blue card. I will continue. I would like to thank Cindy, by the way, for her letter of support from the WCDC for the purchase of the building. We also were supported by the OrthoWorks, by the Community Foundation, and all the orthopedic companies, as well as the banks. The City Council, Redevelopment Commission, Plan Commission, and even the school board reacted overwhelmingly in support of the project, as did WCDC. They all understand the value of renewing a landmark building that would consolidate 5 city departments, avoid an embarrassing vacancy in the most prominent downtown location, and give the city the control of one of the largest parking lots in the downtown district. So parking is an issue, and parking will
will be solved with the purchase of that building. That building did include that large parking lot. This was a long-term, well-studied, demonstrated need, resulting in an informed decision that will benefit the city for the next 75 to 100 years. This was a long-term solution to a long-term problem, and someone had to make that decision. Thank you.
Miller, would you like to use one of your rebuttals? All right.
Well, this is a follow-up question to that, and started to touch on it, and we'll start with you, Mr. Osbaugh. And that is, how, as the mayor of the city, do you promote and protect the downtown commerce all the while allowing big box stores wanted by many citizens into our communities? So what are you going to do to help the downtown, and would you support public funding of the Greenway Initiative into the downtown to help out that space?
Yes, I would. I think the Greenway is an awesome idea, and I think we should get on it and stay on it and do it until it's done. I think public monies are to take care of the public interests. And if we have a dilapidated downtown or we have problems, yes, we should use the monies that we have in order to take care of those problems. As far as purchasing buildings, not necessarily, but yes, I do believe that that's exactly what we should do. We should encourage whatever we can and keep the downtown as vital as we can. Now, the box stores are good. Competition's good. We don't have any department stores to speak of or hardware stores downtown anymore. But anyway, I don't really see a competition for the box stores downtown anyway, so I don't really see a problem.
Dr. Palmer.
Well, I think what we have to do is start with a vision for downtown. And my vision for downtown is an area that attracts, it's a destination for entertainment in the evenings, the festivals, the restaurants, the bars, the activities to bring folks downtown to enjoy their evenings after they've worked. The downtown area itself during the daytime, the business hours, is a banking, is a legal, is a government center that much commerce takes place during the daytime. And I think that with specialty retail shops down there, the city has a very unique niche. The downtown has a very unique niche that I think we need to protect. And I think by the city investing in the downtown, we've already seen a Lake City Bank is going to redo their facade across the street in their training center. On the other side, I'm the first one that can tell you that this community demands big box stores. So there has to be a balance there. Thank you.
Thank you. I obviously agree with the Greenway project. I would like to see it to fruition. Where our business is located, it's not downtown, it's at the edge of town on the lake. And I would almost consider it downtown. As far as big box stores coming to Warsaw, the more the merrier. I think when we're downtown, we have two totally different entities, two totally different types of shopping, different types of needs. And when you use the term revitalize, I think we have a vital and revitalized downtown. It might need some improvement, but when you term it revitalization, it means it's worn out. It's far from worn out. Thank you.
Greenway, yes, downtown. Fantastic. I sit on the Greenway Committee. Been on it for about the last 2.5 years. I think Warsaw's fallen behind. Winona Lake has done a much better job recently. Winona Lake's greenways and trails are fantastic. Help you out at Winona Lake, Dr. Carstein. But we need to do a better job in Warsaw. We can do better. I think the Greenway project started off by David Brown on a KLA project about 20 years ago. Jeff Nossinger, our former city planner, did a project on that on the Greenway, and I think we've kind of lost our focus the last 4 or 5 years. The Greenway's about economic development too. If you ever travel down to central Indiana, they've got the Monon Trail. If you ride your bike through Broad Ripple or any of those places, there's economic development happening all around. So yes, to answer your question, bring the Greenway downtown, spend the money on that because we need it there to bring people downtown. Thank you.
Would anyone like to add additional information on this? Ben. All right, we're going to jump to the Warsaw Airport expansion question. So we'll start with Dr. Tallmer. All right. In order to keep and attract major employers, various studies, whether it was the Patel study into 1999-2000 or the OrthoWorks study from a few years ago, many have said we need significant transportation improvement. 20 years from now, your decision to promote, support, lead the city through this process during your first term in office could have far-reaching implications to our economy. So, what is your current inclination for a solution? I understand there's still a lot of information that needs to be sought, but the current leaning for a solution to our airport expansion concerns. Dr. Tallmer.
Well, let's first be very clear. The potential expansion of the east-west runway will never involve closure of County Road 100 East. I said that at the meeting out at the Armory that day, and not sure I was heard. I've never voted to close 100 East, nor will I ever vote to close 100 East. The only viable option is to divert the road around the extension, which is estimated to add about 40 seconds to a trip. It's very unfortunate that that road diversion was not presented, was not available when the issue first arose. And I can understand the concerns and the anger of the neighbors when they heard the road was going to close. But unfortunately, the cart got a little bit before the horse. There was never any intention to close that road, and I would only support the diversion of that road. I would agree that the expansion of that runway is not only a safety and accessibility issue, it is also a long-term economic development issue. Again, looking at the connectivity of Warsaw, the OrthoWorks study has projected that as a transportation necessity. Thank you.
Mr. Miller.
Can you repeat the question again?
Yes, indeed. In order to keep and attract major employers, various studies done in our community have said we need significant transportation improvement. 20 years from now, your decision related to promoting, supporting, or leading this initiative really during your first term could have far-reaching implications to our economy. So, what is your current inclination for a solution to airport expansion?
Mine's pretty simple. I've been outspoken on this in the past with being a corporate airplane owner and a pilot, that we don't need it. Our airport now services our needs. In the future, as planes get more efficient, runway lengths shrink. What the proposal is by the airport board and the mayor is to lengthen our runway to 7,000 feet, which is longer than what Midway Airport is in Chicago. The purpose of this is to help one or two potential industries and maybe one or two individuals at a cost of proposed $5 million twice in two separate, I believe, 5-year increments on it. So a total of $10 million to help just a couple of people. And even a 40-second diversion, what could be potential of that, if you drive that 5 times a day, you shouldn't need to go through that.
Mr. Babcock.
Airport expansion. I'm going to defer. These two guys are pilots from what I understand. They know a lot more about this than me. Dale out of the audience wrote a letter to the editor a while back. I think the most important thing is obviously if we're going to look at expanding this, maybe it's going to happen, maybe it's not. I don't know, but closing 100 is not an option. We have people that come into our city on that road, and like Mr. Miller just said, a diversion on there probably is not a good idea. Also, just to follow up on something else on transportation, we talked about high-speed rail, and I know OrthoWorks supported the high-speed rail. Unfortunately, if you read what's going on, high-speed rail is probably dead in our country. A lot of other states have given back the money, so the Obama administration, Wisconsin's given their money back, Ohio's given their money back. We met with state people. I don't see it as an option. 2 weeks ago, we were down at IDEM and talking to them, and it's just not going to happen. So, thank you.
Mr. Oswald.
Well, I have done my research on this, and I looked at several planes that we have out of the airport, and I looked at the runway necessity for the planes, and it's about 2,600 feet, takeoff or landing. We have a 6,000-foot east-west runway. I agree with Tony. We do not need a longer runway. We're building retirement homes on the west end of the runway. Now, I lived in Burbank, California for 20 years. The P-38 was built in Burbank. they started building homes all around the airport, and then all of a sudden, everybody said, well, it's 10 o'clock at night, they shouldn't have any more planes. That's what's going to happen in Warsaw. We're going to build all these homes around this expanded airport, and then they're going to want to close it because there's too much noise. Or they're going to tell the planes that want to come in, you can't come in because it's 10 o'clock. And the doctor that has to do a surgery in California won't be able to fly into Depew because he won't be able to get in at 10 o'clock, so they have to go to Fort Wayne. So let's try not to be something we're not. We are Warsaw, we're big enough, we got a great airport. Thank you.
Dr. Tomlin.
I just wanted to make a couple other points. The diversion around the runway is a very common fix. Just look north to South Bend. Lincoln Way West is a far busier road, twice the traffic that we have here. And that road not only has been diverted, but they have taken that diversion of that road. They have decided to move the South Shore. They have created an industrial airport and park, and they have taken a situation where the expansion of the runway has led to further economic development activity at the airport in the form of an industrial park. They're actually even going to move the cloverleaf down a few miles. I think this decision has been studied for the last 6 years. There's probably another year to go. I think dismissing this option in the middle of the study would not be responsible. I think we have to look at the potential for economic development, the potential for a charter air service in Warsaw, and to stop right now would be ridiculous. Thank you.
Mr. Miller.
Joe brought up the safety factor of our airport. We have never had a incident or accident at the airport based on a runway condition. I don't personally believe safety is the issue. When a plane is manufactured, it's manufactured under the manufacturer's guidelines and approved by the FAA. And any responsible pilot and or aircraft owner that's going to operate that aircraft out of the Warsaw airport, or any airport as far as that goes, will make sure it fits those conditions. And simply put, I would like to see all the aircraft owners and or pilots that are supportive of a longer runway ask a simple question: do they ever land or depart from the airport or runway smaller than ours? I think that'll solve all the problems.
I didn't have a rebuttal.
This is exactly why we need a breath of fresh air in Warsaw. $10 million, and everybody's hurting for money. $10 million, because we might get more traffic, or we got a 6,000-foot runway. We have planes coming in every day with no problem whatsoever. $10 million. Somebody's paying for that. I don't care whose pocket it's coming from. Somebody's paying for that. We shouldn't be spending it. That's fiscally irresponsible. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move to some specific departmental kind of issues now. One from the audience here. We'll start with you, Mr. Miller. Which city department would be the first one that you would review to rework, reshape, redirect? Which city department would be the first one that you'd look at?
Well, I guess the one that's closest to my heart right now would be the airport. Joe, I know you find that hard to believe. We have a appointed board that does not function properly, in my opinion. I've laid out the groundwork for the county commissioners to come forward and suggest that we sell half the airport to the county, and where we could have an airport authority, and which would eliminate the airport board, so everybody would have a vote in the matter. Secondly, we have 5 employees, I believe, at the airport, and 1 full-time manager. To me, a department that small does not need a full-time manager. I would suggest combining that into another one and keep lean and mean.
Mr. Babcock, which department would you look at first? I've been looking at them for the last 3 years on the budget. I look at all of them. I can't say one specific one because I think we have to look at everything. We have to see what we can do, where we can cut back, because if any of you have ever come to the budget meetings, I've probably prolonged them probably sometimes an hour, because I ask department heads questions, line by line, what's going on. I know it drives some of the people on the council crazy, keeps them there longer, but we've got a job to do. And one of the things we have to do is we have to look at these things line by line. We're spending a lot of money. We need to look at things, how we can do things more efficiently. There's a lot of things out there. I mean, can we combine the building and planning department with the county? They don't have a building and planning department. Can we combine the mechanics in our city? We've got mechanics working in the police department, I believe the park department, the cemetery. We've got a lot of them. Can we combine these things with the schools? Let's try to save some money. Let's look at everything, and that's my plan. Thank you.
Mr. Oswald.
Well, I said the police department earlier, so I don't want to contradict myself. However, I would take the trash truck that we have right now and take it to the trash and not bring it back. I think we're in 1955 with the guys riding on the back of a truck. It's almost inhuman that these guys have to smell this stuff in the summertime. We should get the barrels and get the one-armed truck, get those same two guys, I'm not going to lay them off, put them in a truck, and all the senior citizens and disabled people can put themselves on the list, and we'll have a truck go ahead of the other truck, bring the barrels to the street, and then the truck will come and dump them, and then they'll come back and they'll put the barrels back to their door. And then I want to take a look at the police department, because I want to look at their cars. I've seen their cars and they look pretty ratty. I think we could cut back on a few cars and maybe get guys to share cars and not take their cars home if they're not on call. I wouldn't want to be a cop 24 hours a day. I would want to go home and relax. And thank you.
Dr. Palmer.
Just a quick comment, Tony. Your airport authority idea is probably not bad. The only problem there is you add another taxing unit to the already burdensome tax bill, so I don't think I'd go for that. I'm not going to answer that question on the grounds that I could get killed tomorrow. I would agree with Kyle. I would look at all the departments. I fully intend to go through all the departments and to speak with every employee and try and understand personnel issues, personnel needs. Obviously, efficiency. I have my ideas on efficiency. I think it's important, though, to get the whole picture before I go public with a hit list. So I would just say right now it's important to give everyone the benefit of the doubt till I get a chance to get in, discuss, compare, look at budgets, and then I'll answer that question maybe when the time's appropriate. Thank you.
Anyone like to further time on that one? All right. Mr. Babcock, right? We're up to you. Who will you speak with first at the county government level during your first week of work, and why did you choose that individual? Who will you speak to first at the county government level, and why did you choose that person?
Ron Robinson. He's a county administrator. He knows what the pulse is going on. You've got commissioners, you've got 3 of them that are quasi-mayors, they're part-time. You've got a county council who's part-time. So I talked to Ron because Ron has the pulse of what's going on. Ron's a former sheriff in our community. He's administrator. His assistant, Nanette, there know a lot about things going on, and that's who I'd speak with. Thank you.
Rocky Gusher. Meth is like a thorn in my side. I want to talk to Rocky and see, I want to ride with him. I want to go out there, I want to find out exactly what's going on. I want to see what he's dealing with. And then, as the other fellows have suggested, I think our police department should work as closely together as they can, because the county and the city really are one. You know, you can't vote for me if you don't live in the city, but you know, I do represent you because you eat in my town, you drive through my town, and you shop in my town. So I represent you. However, meth just, I've got to wipe it out. That's my biggest goal, and I think Rocky would be a good place to start. Thank you.
I think it would be logical to start with the county commissioners, talk to them about their experiences as quasi-mayors, as they've been called. It's important to understand their budgeting concerns. A lot of the funds that come to Warsaw are distributed through the county. So I think it's important to start with that administrative layer and
and worked out. I certainly agree that I would talk to Rocky. The county does have a plan department. Dan Richard, I would talk to him. I think you probably have to do the same as going through the city departments, is probably go through the county departments, because they're all intertwined and we all do work together. So it's important to paint this with a broad brush.
Mr. Miller, who would be the first county official you would speak to, and why that person?
The first county official would definitely be our sheriff, Rocky Gosser. I've spoken to him briefly in the past, and I appreciate his outlook on issues we have. The one thing I would propose doing is, and it would need to be done at the state level, because I believe Marion County is the only one that does that, to where they combine the city and county into one law enforcement unit. Everybody knows how things get lost in the shuffle, in communication. I think we're doing an excellent job, both at the Warsaw, the city level, and the county level with law enforcement. But I think a huge improvement could be made if we would have one governing body, and preferably that would be the sheriff.
Anyone like to use extra time? All right, another question from the audience here. And I guess we'll start with you, Mr. Oswald. Which neighborhood do you think is the next best choice for annexation?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you really, if you have a builder that wants to change the zoning for a plot of land, and he wants to put up the money, and he wants to build homes, and he's willing to put up the dollars to help our city to be able to take care of that area. But if somebody takes up a petition, there's a couple of neighborhoods on the west side of town by Zimmer, and they have a lot of sewage problems, and they really need to be in the city because they can't put sewers in their backyards because it's too small, and they have a problem. A lot of them can't even flush their stools. I mean, they have a real problem. So they would have to be on a choice. People have to want to be in our city. We can't just take them over. So either that or a developer. So that's a very difficult question to answer without more facts. Thank you.
Dr. Palmer.
There's just a couple of fellows from Winona Lake that raised their hands back there. Were you interested in annexation of Winona Lake? I've heard that mentioned, but I'm certainly not going to go there, other than they raised their hands. I think the most important areas for annexation are areas that we can get sewer and water to, areas that we can get infrastructure to so that they can be developed and not have to go in and tear up some residential neighborhoods' lawns to put sewer in. You certainly want to go to areas that you can get that infrastructure to and then create those again, developable, shovel-ready grounds for economic development. Obviously, if there's neighborhood concerns and need for more housing, you know, those areas have to be ripened in housing areas as well. That's certainly things we looked at on the Plan Commission for the 12 years I was on the Plan Commission, and those are very, very critical questions and require a lot of scrutiny and forethought before that occurs.
Mr. Miller.
When you say annexation of neighborhoods, that's pretty broad-based. I think as a whole, you need to look at the risk versus reward from the city. If there's issues in certain neighborhoods, absolutely, they need to be looked at to help the residents. Annexation as a whole, it wouldn't be a neighborhood, but it would be an area. To this day, I do not know why the city has not annexed the airport industrial park. We've dodged it, zoned all around it. You've got industry there that will help our tax structure. It's already got sewer there. Warsaw doesn't have to worry about water because we don't offer water. So the airport industrial park would be my first annexation, but it's not residential.
Mr. Babcock.
It's virtually impossible to force annex anymore. Senator Long has a bill. I don't know if any of you followed what happened over in Boyd Township, but there's all kinds of rules and regulations. One of the things we have to look at for annexation, which I think is a possibility coming down the pike is as property taxes, we want to keep our property taxes low, but we all voted, or 70% of the people voted for these property tax caps. So once we're at the property tax cap level, what's going to happen is there will not be a disincentive to be annexed anymore, because what will happen will be is their property taxes can't go any higher. So the main thing is let's talk to people. If they want in, let's talk to them. We can't forcibly annex people, and I don't think that's the way we should go do things. What Mr. Miller said makes sense out of the airport. Thank you.
Anyone additional time? All right, another question from the audience, and I'm glad I'm starting with you, Dr. Tomer, because you'll probably provide some clarity here. This question is asking your opinion on the health insurance plan for town council and the mayor and their ability to get onto the city insurance. Now, is it true that it's free health care, that you don't pay anything for that health care?
It's a benefit.
Okay. So what is your opinion of the free health insurance the taxpayers provide for political officers, including your position, the mayor?
It's been a benefit. I suppose I don't know how really to respond to that. It's part of the job. We're paid $2,500 a year. We spend a lot of hours, and it's a side benefit that has always been there. We do pay. It's not free. There is a monthly amount for families and or singles, so it's not free. But you know, the health insurance is a benefit for all the employees. The benefit is no different for us than it is for the other employees. We do pay the same amount.
Mr. Miller, your opinion of the mayor part-time position being on the city health insurance?
I'm glad that question was asked. I'll have some ads coming out. One of the savings that I would like to see us do as a city is drop all the health insurance for any elected official that's not full-time. I think that would change the complexion of the city. It would change the complexion of our elected officials. And if money is an issue, like what Joe said, that's $2,500, whatever the fee is, raise the fee, drop the insurance. From what I'm aware of and know of the insurance, there's probably not another industry in town that offers as good a health plan as what the city has. I'm all for the workers getting it. They deserve it. Many times they're paid less than what the private sector is, but elected officials, let's save the money and drop it.
Mr. Babcock.
We make about $5,000 a year on the city council, so it is $5,000, and we get the health insurance benefits. All 7 of us take it right now. We've got a policy in the city that says we have a spousal rule. It says if your spouse works somewhere, you've got to take your spouse has to take the insurance there. I think something we should look at for the elected officials is if you're employed somewhere, you ought to be forced to take the insurance there. Now, I look at this thing maybe a little bit different. I'm a self-employed one-man band. But the bottom line is we have a lot of people on the city council right now that are employed other places, and they're all taking the city health insurance. I don't know about their spouses, but they're taking the city health insurance. And I think that's something we can save some money on. Sure, we pay about $50 a month for a family plan. I look like this. I put in so much time, and that's one of the reasons I put in so much time, because I benefit from that, and I feel like I owe it to the citizens to give the time because I do benefit from that. Thank you.
Mr. Oswald.
Well, looking at it here, we do pay $50,470 a year for health insurance for the council. But these guys do work pretty hard, and they don't make much money. I mean, $5,000 a year for the amount of time that they put in. You know, we should at least pay them more if we're going to take them off the insurance. But me, I would have to look at it. I would have to see, actually, I think we pay too much for insurance, period. I think we could go with a better plan. But I would really have to look into it, see how many people we have, and try and combine all the departments, because we have departments that pay $800,000 a year in health insurance, like the police department. So I think we could combine some of these departments and maybe get a better rate. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but we certainly have to look into that. So the council members do work hard for very little money, so that's about the only perk they get. So at the moment, I would leave it alone.
Anyone like additional time? All right, we're at our final question for today. Sort of a vision question for you to think about. Jeff Plank, he left the Central Park and the CCAC. Ernie Wiggins is leaving Warsaw in a strong financial position despite the difficult times. What will your legacy project or projects be 10 years from now? Mr. Miller.
My legacy, I would want it to be to continue what Mayor Wiggins has done. He's done a good fiscal job for us. To take that further, what I brought up earlier is to bring another key industry to town. I come from a manufacturing environment. Manufacturing is very intimate to me. It's very easy for me to understand. And as a mayor, what I describe as being marketing and sales, I would like a legacy of mine to bring a new industry to complement the medical device industry to Warsaw. I think we're right for it. Thank you.
Mr. Babcock, what will your legacy or legacy projects be 10 years from now?
I don't know if I'll be in office 10 years. I'm going 4 years at a time. I think that's one of the things we have to look at is if we're in office for a long time. But over the next 4 years, I want to do things. Small business incubator. I started on the redevelopment commission talking about this. I was in one in Indianapolis, cheap rent. Let's start some businesses there. What Mr. Miller said is so true. Sales and marketing. I want to make sure we have gainful employment for everybody. We've got to try harder. It's harder out there. We've got communities out there that are working hard. They're traveling overseas, trying to bring jobs here. Mayor Siebold in Marion, he's traveled to India, he's traveled to China. He's bringing business back over here. As much as we want to keep the jobs here, but we've got to go find jobs other places. So my legacy would be employment, small business incubator, making it easier for businesses to get started in my 4 years. Thank you.
Mr. Oswald.
Well, it's no secret that I have in my vision a state-of-the-art truck stop on Highway 30 west of 15. I would want to see something that draws the trucks in. We got fish in a barrel. They're driving by us all day long. They buy fuel. Fort Wayne's 40 miles away. A lot of them have deliveries in Fort Wayne. They have nowhere to stop right now. They do, but it's very small and limited. So I would like to have something centrally located, which is Warsaw. And also I would love to bring a store called Costco. It's a box store, another box store. But they have a lot of unique items, so they're not really in competition with other stores. They bring in items, there's a lot of compulsive buying there. But I really want to be known for one thing, and that was Michael was the kind of mayor that actually really cared about people and got involved in the local schools and senior citizens and whatnot. And I definitely want to look at the tax structure, city taxes for seniors. I want to cut them back. I want to cut taxes.
Dr. Tolman.
I figured this question would come up. Monica talked about sharing our vision in her letter, and I thought about that. Last weekend I had the opportunity to go out and start knocking on doors, and as I've noticed through neighborhood meetings and just living in this community for as long as I have, some of our neighborhoods are starting to really age. And I think some of the revitalization efforts resources we put into downtown revitalization, I think needs to move out into some of the neighborhoods, some of our older neighborhoods. There's some beautiful homes. There's some very, very caring people that take care of these houses and want their property to be valuable and keep their values up. But unfortunately, there's some crumbling around them, and it's a difficult situation. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take time. But I would like to look at maybe the neighborhood revitalization maybe 10 years down the road. I agree, Kyle. I'm not sure I'm going to be around in 10 years either.